Hello Summoners and welcome back to another episode of ProGuides Best Champion of Main, now in patch 11.24b. The champs that we pick for this series are strong picks with high performance but have low ban rates, and are unlikely to be nerfed anytime soon. They are reliable picks for climbing and are worth investing your time in. We also have a series that covers the most broken contested picks in each role, so be sure that you're subbed to the channel so you don't miss out when we post those as well. We'll start things out in the top lane with Kayle. Kayle is pretty much the ultimate late game insurance. So if you prefer to scale up and play things out to the late game, she's probably the pick for you. Her hyper-scaling ability naturally comes with a bit of a slow start, but is definitely worth it. To survive the early game, prioritize wave management over actually getting CS. Don't just spam Q to get last hits, this is a good way to mess up your wave, which will lead your opponents to freezing on you. It's pretty much impossible to break a freeze as Kayle, so this will very quickly lead to your game being ruined. If you're tired of being stuck in your current elo, the first step to climbing is fixing your champion pool. That's why we make these videos, so you can find the right champion or champs for you. After you decide what you're going to play, then you have to learn how to play it correctly. It may take many games to learn a new champion, but you don't have to spend days or weeks doing it alone. Our top tier coaches over at ProGuides.com can help you figure out exactly what you need to work on, and they're available 24/7, so it's never really a bad time to come try one out. I promise there's at least one that specializes in exactly what you're looking for. These guys have spent years reaching the top of the ladder, so why wouldn't you want to steal all their solo queue tips and tricks? All you have to do is click the link in the description, and now let's get back into the video. Our second top laner is Poppy. While classified as a tank, Poppy's super scrappy playstyle will make you feel like you're playing a bruiser. You'll constantly contest your opponents every single time they move up for farm, and if they ever make a mistake standing near a wall, you'll be able to punch them really hard. A lot of top lane bruisers have a dash to help them escape from a bad situation, but with their W, you can keep them right where you want them. And if you really want to bully your opponent, then there's one more thing that you can do. It's pretty customary to run teleport on top laners, especially tanks, but if you're feeling spicy, take Ignite to really raise your kill pressure. Our last top laner, believe it or not, is Sejuani. While she may be better known as a jungler, Sej actually does a lot better when played up here on the solo lane island. The reason top lane works so much better for her is that Sejuani has a pretty slow start for her game. In the jungle, the weak early game means that she doesn't really provide much pressure. In most games, she's either just gonna be hard outganked by an early game aggressive pick, or she'll be up against a power farmer that clears much quicker and scales up way more easily than her. Putting her up in the top lane allows her to get more income than she would normally in the jungle, so she can be a lot tankier, and therefore more disruptive in the later fights. Taking a look now at the jungle, our first pick is RekSai. RekSai has been at the top of their jungle tier list for several patches now, but she still remains one of the less popular champions. But to me, that's actually really good news. Her being less contested means more LP for me. Her early game pressure is just absolutely insane. Her ability to tunnel through walls means that you can easily scoop up kills on your opponents that wouldn't otherwise be gankable. And post 6 with her target's untargetability, you can just straight up go for a dive if your laner has good burst and or CC. Talk about tunnel vision. Our second jungle pick is Warwick. Mechanically speaking, he's one of the easiest champions in the game. So if you want somebody that's nice and simple, he may be the pick for you. At pretty much every stage of the game, Warwick can duel anybody that you run into. So unless the laners have an overwhelming amount of influence, you should be able to contest every single scuttle crab that you want. The one weakness Warwick has is his team fighting. It's not that it's absolutely impossible to 5v5 with him, but his ultimate getting interrupted means that you'll lose out on a lot of healing. Plus, he's pretty easy to kite out by range-heavy teams. So in most games, stick to playing for picks or fight smaller 2v2s and 3v3 skirmishes. The last jungler that we have for you is Fiddle 6. He's everything our last two picks aren't. He's a complete scaling pick with little to no influence on the early game. But once you do scale up, he's one of, if not the best, teamfighters in the game. Plenty of champions have either AoE CC or big AoE damage, but Fiddle 6 has the potential to land a 5-man fear and melt the entire enemy team, all on his own. The one caveat is that you need to use his ultimate from out of vision, so be sure you buy a control ward and use his passive as much as you can. In my opinion, Fiddle 6 was by far the most elo inflating champion of season 11, even more so than Kayn. At least with Kayn you have to interact with your form, but with Fiddle it's just AFK farm and pray that your team isn't down by 20 kills by the time you reach level 11. That brings us to today's question of the day. Judging by the preseason so far, who do you think will be the most elo-inflating champion of Season 12? Let us know your answers down in the comments below. Now for the mid lane, the first champion that you may want to consider is Anivia. While some champs have completely overbearing laning phase due to how much they bully you, either through constant poke or overwhelming all-ins, Anivia is the opposite side of the coin. She's basically the ultimate lane neutralizer. Her ultimate allows you to instantly clear waves with no need to interact with your opponent at all. This is especially useful against an opponent that tries to roam a lot. Every time they may leave the lane, you may either take plates or just go for a free reset. If you want a champion with a more hyper carry-esque feel, maybe Cassiopeia is more your speed. Even with her being a scaling-oriented pick, Cass has a really strong laning phase against most of the current meta champions. That said, you don't want to try and force trades too hard too early, or else you'll just run yourself out of mana and you'll be unable to farm as well. Instead, focus on CSing for the first few levels. Once you have enough gold to afford Lost Chapter, immediately go back for it. With that, you'll have the mana sustain to start putting up a fight against your opponent. Once out of the laning phase, try to plant yourself in a side lane for a while so you can go ahead and keep your farm in XP. Only group when needed around Dragon until you have at least 3 full items. Our final mid laner for this patch is Pantheon. While our first 2 picks have been more farm-oriented types that want to make it to late game, Panth is for the player that wants to smash lane, roam a lot, and close out the game as fast as possible. So if you're an aggressive type, give him a shot. Panth's early game is insane, and since he's pretty underplayed, most people don't know really what to expect from it. This often leads to very early kills, as early as level 2, which usually turns into a very quick snowball. Once your opponent realizes how dangerous you are, they'll often over-respect you, giving you free reign of the mid lane. This means that you can shove waves and freely roam to exert your lead elsewhere. This is a great way to tilt the enemy jungle, since you can easily solo kill them if you find them on the camp. Taking things down to the bot lane, we have a first look at Ashe. Ashe is constantly in a state of either really good or very good, depending on the current meta, so she's never really a bad champion to lock in. She always has a lot to offer. Her DPS potential is pretty close to hyper carries, which is pretty insane considering that she is the definition of a utility pick. Between her slows, her hawkshot, and her pick and engage potential that she brings with her ultimate, it's like she's an ADC with a built-in support. If you aren't sold yet, then there's also the impressive laning phase. The high range on her autos and her volley spam make her a laner that even Jhin and Caitlyn struggle to deal with. The second bot lane carry that we'll be looking at is Corki. And instead of the normal ADC-ish build that he normally goes, this time we have a new flavor of the month build that turns him into more of a mage. This build gives him both insane burst damage and really good consistent poke from far away. The key to making this work bot lane is using unique trading patterns. While most ADCs can simply just right click and win, the majority of Corki's damage is tied to his Q and rockets. So pre-6 your trade should be very short and very bursty. Post 6, use your rockets to whittle down your opponent. Once they're low, wait for your support to make the first move, and then Valkyrie in for a follow-up. The last bot lane carry that we have for you is Sivir. We gave the lethality build here since it's the mindless, super easy to use option, but if you prefer more scaling power, crit is really good too. The nice thing about Sivir is that she has the wave clear to neutralize a lot of the laning phase once you have some AD and a few points in Q. This means that you can completely avoid the 2v2 aspect in the bot lane, so you don't really have to worry about losing because of support diff. Once you make it out of the laning phase, you'll be a great asset to your team, providing an instant wave clear, huge poke, and engage power via her ultimate. That movement speed can be a huge difference when you have bruisers and juggernauts that just need a little bit of help reaching and sticking to the enemy team's backline. Now to round out our list with our supports, we'll lead with Zilean. He's been one of the most slept on picks for a while for way too long. In my opinion. He's been sitting between 52 and 54% win rate for about a year now, and he's still barely over a 4% pick rate. This is surprising to me because every time I have a Zilean on my team, he's practically useless. So get on the train right now before Riot picks up and gives him his long overdue buffs. As a general tip for max order, remember that supports generally don't make it to level 18 unless games go really long. So you're really just trying to max out 2 of your abilities. Most supports have a clear-cut best skill to max first, but with Zilean, you have to make a choice. For utility, it's best to max E and then W, but since Q is his only damage, you'll be hitting for next to nothing in 2v2's bot lane. If you want to win lane harder, maxing Q is definitely the best option as it does offer a lot of damage. The trade-off is that you won't be able to provide as much movement speed to your allies or as many slows to your opponents once it's time to teamfight later on into the game. Our second support is Maokai. As much as Riot tried to nerf this, Maokai is just way too consistent as a support. Maybe having a point and click route, infinite vision control, and tons of disruption in teamfights is just a little bit too OP. It would be one thing if his laning phase was weak, like most other engaged supports, but since the saplings give total control of lane bushes, Maokai is incredibly strong, bordering on oppressive. If you want to be even stronger in lane, consider running an Arcane Comet Rune Page instead of Aftershock. This may make your durability a little bit lower, but if you aren't the only frontliner on your team, you can usually afford this exchange. Finishing off our list, we have my personal favorite support, Zyra. If you're the type of player that wants to totally dominate the lane, then she's a champion that you should be picking up. More than any other support, she can completely control the flow of the lane. She has good pushing power to help your ADC shove the wave into the enemy turret, and once you're there, you can go ahead and spam the harass on your opponents as they try to farm. Since you're able to do this from well outside of any other champion's engage range, they're totally helpless to fight back. Post 6, Zyra brings incredible all-in power, so whether you land a root on one of your opponents or you need to counter their engage, you should be all but guaranteed to win most fights as long as you can get off your full combo. And that is it for our top 3 champions to main on patch 11.24b. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure you sub so you never miss out on our meta guides and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember, let us know what your prediction is for the most elo inflating champion of season 12 down in the comments below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below where you can go ahead and discuss the league further or just hang out and be part of our community. Can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.